Are we ready? Are you ready?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Right. The first storyteller I'd like to introduce from the Leaf, all the way from the Leaf, is Fiona Herbert.
Not only am I a storyteller, I'm also a historian, an expert in the history of the Royal Mile. I started my expert career on the tour buses. You've no doubt seen them going around Edinburgh. The buses with no roofs. A bus without a roof in Scotland is an optimistic vehicle. Now, I shared in this optimism. I went through rigorous training, facts, filled myself with knowledge, learned all the rules, and finally passed. And I was awarded, I was awarded this. Just to command that extra degree of respect. So, filled with a glorious mixture of stories, I was very excited. I faced my first real busload of proper people. But I think we must have been given kinder drivers when we were training. I had a new driver now. And I got on the bus and very friendly, I introduced myself. Hello, I'm Fiona, and you are? Well, he was a deeply angry man. I think driven to insanity through having to listen to the same stories day after day for at least the last decade. As a result of this, whenever we got to an area particularly crammed with historical interest, he would accelerate. Facing my audience, the grass market. Oh! There's Maggie Dixon's pub. She was interesting. That's the White Hart Inn. The Rabbi once had the pint. The candlemaker Rona. The candlemaker's never mind. Oh, his Greyfriars Bobby. He was a dog. As a storyteller, it was deeply distressing, and I only lasted a summer. I decided to tell my own tour. So I investigated the wee closes of the Royal Mile. And I wanted to do this at walking pace. So that's what I did. And I've got a wee map under here of this very tour. Now, if you can imagine, it's going to become a map very soon. If you just imagine that this is the Royal Mile itself, and we've got all the wee closes coming off it, right? The first one we've got is Borthwick's Close. Now, Borthwick is actually a corruption of both wicks, named after a man who was so busy that he burnt his candle at both ends. You've heard the expression. Wick. Now, this man was so busy, he sometimes had to get up half an hour before he'd gone to bed. And what kept him so busy? He was a delivery man. And as you'll know, those high tenements, overcrowded streets, his workday was a long one, and it was further lengthened by his elderly delivery donkey. Old ass, you can see. Now, he didn't so much walk as amble along. And he was called Ambly after his amble. This got corrupted to Embley, and the close was named after him. So we have Old Assembly. Now you might think it's strange. That they named a close after a donkey, but I'll remind you, us Scots love our animals. We named a church after a dog. Greyfriars Kirk being named after that loving loyal terrier, Greyfriars Bobby. Now, Mr. Borthwick's and Old Assembly, they lived in a time when fear of witchcraft and wizardry was at its most hysteric, the time of King James VI. It was believed that witches never worked alone. Where there was one, there'd always be several. This was known as a coven. One day when Ambly and Mr. Borthwick were doing their delivery, Mr. Borthwick noticed a strange formation of ants that seemed to be marching in 3 6s. He immediately alerted the town guard, and it was agreed that these must be witches that had shapeshifted, and they were immediately stamped to death. And after that incident, we have the name of the next close, Coven Ant Close. Now, the custom is to always burn witches, so the ants were then burned. The breeze took the smoke from the burning ants into the next close where the fishermen were hanging their nets out so they'd be all nice for the next day. And as a result of this, they believed that the nets would be contaminated and that the ships might get cursed. So they, of course, had to burn the nets. We have. Now, the next close after that isn't, in fact, a close, it's a wind. Why a wind and not a close? Well, this is where the numerous bells of the kirks would be taken to be wound up, so they would ring on time. And this was quite a precarious occupation because it's a very, being on a volcanic crag, it's a steep slope. Well, one day, a rather large bell was being rolled along to the winding place when it slipped out of the grasp of the 2 men who were rolling it. Mr. Bothwick's and Amberley were coming up the other way. And, well, Mr. Bothwick's was agile enough to jump out of the way, but sadly, old ass Amberley was not, and he was crushed to death beneath the bell. Mr. Bothwick's was heartbroken, absolutely distraught. He, of course, had to carry on with his business. He had to get another donkey. He named it after the old one. He named it Amberley. He couldn't bear to have it stabled in the same place as his old donkey had been stabled, so he stabled it in the next close along. So then we have after that incident with Bell's Wine, we have New Assembly. Now, Amberley didn't die in vain. A very bright young man called Stephen came up with the novel idea of keeping the bells in their towers to be wound up. This law was welcomed by the council, and the next close was named in its honour, Stephen Law's Close. But the close down beside that was a right miserable bunch of pessimistic, defeatist souls lived there. And when the law was getting passed through Parliament, they would gather around muttering, "It can't be done, it can't be done." Yeah. So we have Cant's Close named after him. But Stephen had a girlfriend called Mel, and she was a very loyal and loving girlfriend. And whenever she heard these people moaning that, she would rise up onto a box, stand up on a box and say, "It can be done, it can." And in honour of that lovely devotion, we have Melrose Close, where Mel rose to the defence of her love. The law was passed. It wasn't welcomed by quite a lot of people because it involved having to pay a bell winding scaffolding tax, and everybody had to pay this. People would go across Royal Mile to the other side and complain about this, and the service at this office where they went to complain was awful. It would make them stamp their feet in frustration. So across the side we then have Old Stamp Office. Now they get so exhausted from stamping their feet that they then go to the next post where they were provided with straw to lie on. So then we have lie-ons. Now, the street beside that, I'm going to take you forward now about 200 years to the 1800s when the car was first invented, and it was actually invented in the Royal Mile. They had custom-made, extremely narrow vehicles to suit the extremely narrow closes, and very, very expensive. About 200 people would club together to buy one, and after you'd had a shot, you'd then take it to this close to get it all rubbed and polished. So we have car rubbers close. Now the close beside that was where all the dentists lived, and people would come there. Dental hygiene wasn't good in those days. They'd come there to moan about their teeth. So you've got Monteith's Close there. And Mr. Bothwick's, well, he got himself in a right state. After Amberley died, he lost the will to floss and had to get all his teeth extracted. You had to go to the next close for this, where a device rather like a snorkel was fitted onto Mr. Bothwick's face, which through an elaborate system of pulleys and levers would allow him to masticate. It looked rather like the elephant's appendage trunk, so we have trunks close. And that's just there. Now, don't lump me with all these liars, because not only is this written in black and white, you get yourselves out here and up there, and it's written in stone too. I have